This is the Loaded Radio Podcast.
All right, hey, it's Scott Penfold, and welcome back to another episode, another edition of the Loaded Radio Podcast. Great to have you back with us here this week, and man, a great show this week. I'm going to be really getting into Ozzy Osbourne. Of course, the Grammys just happened, and we'll be talking about that as too. Ozzy walking away with 2 of the golden statues, which, I mean, depending really on how you look at the Grammys, I mean, can be a good thing or a who cares kind of a thing. So we'll be talking about that. And as well, I'm going to be talking to Darrell Dwarf. He is the longtime drummer for the band KiLLeR DWaRfS. And he's got a new book out right now. It's actually the first of 3 books called Foot Chronicles of a Rock and Roll Pirate Volume 1. It arrived in August of last year, but actually August of 2021. And Darrell is currently out there touring the book, and apparently it's doing quite well, and it's a great read as well. If you really want to get a look inside of the life of a rock and roll drummer throughout the 80s, a successful rock and roll drummer throughout the 80s, this should be definitely a book you want to read. Okay, a look into the life and work of Darrell Dwarf Millar is what the snippet says for the paperback. A crazy ride in the fast lane of rock and roll spanning over 50 years. So yeah, definitely a good read. We'll be talking about that with Darrell as well, all things KiLLeR DWaRfS, and yeah, maybe throw in a few other things there too as to what's going on with the drummer that is Darrell Dwarf, and we'll be getting to him in just a few seconds. But as well, I'll be talking about what's happening in the world of hard rock and metal news-wise, and as to what's been going on as of recent. Okay, sound like a good discussion to you? All right, sounds good to me. So what we'll do first off, though, is connect with Darrell here. Let's get him on with us here. Like I said, man, longtime drummer for the band KiLLeR DWaRfS. They're still going, man. They're still out there playing gigs. Not nearly enough, though, as far as I'm concerned, man. I think KiLLeR DWaRfS, a fantastic band from the era that was the late 80s going into the early 90s, and still to this day, they're a great live band, and just the sound they deliver, the show they deliver, rather, is just killer. It's got that nostalgic tinge, of course, because, I mean, we're talking about KiLLeR DWaRfS here, but yeah, they're a killer band, man. So yeah, Darrell, great to have you here with us on the show, man. Thanks for joining us on Loaded Radio Podcast this week.
Hey, buddy.
Darrell, how are you, man?
Good.
It is great to talk to you, sir.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, this seems to be working.
I'm really glad that Johnny sort of got this together, because I've actually wanted to have a chat with you about the new book for quite a while here. So this works out. This is great.
Cool, man.
Well, now I know you're currently promoting the new book, Foot Chronicles of a Rock and Roll Pirate Volume 1. Tell me about what inspired you to put pen to paper and get this thing sort of going.
It's so crazy, Scott. It's like I never thought I'd be in the book business, but I actually am full balls deep in the book business these days.
Right.
It all started with another book I wrote, not this one. It started with my first book called Guardian of a Timekeeper. And what's surprising about that book is it's not really about rock and roll. And that kind of threw everybody for a loop when I first just sprung it on everybody and put it out. But it was really created due to the death of my father, it sounds like a negative thing, but my dad lived a wonderful life. He was a very talented jazz piano player. He was a pilot in World War II. He had a very colorful life and taught me a lot. I loved him dearly. He died at 92. He had a great life. And, I thought I was all ready for that when it happened. He was in long-term care, and he ended up getting like a blood disorder kind of thing at the end. And, right. But when you lose a parent, you're just never really ready for it, So I started writing memoirs and good and bad memories, and my dad actually saved my life a couple of times. And that's how the Guardian of a Timekeeper thing happened, because I started writing down the memoirs that turned into chapters, and I started realizing that I have almost died 10 times in my life. Wow, and in my rock career.
Really?
I mean, I'm sure. Yeah, man. I'm sure a lot of people have had near death things, accidents, whatnot. But once I started writing it down, it just ended up being like a movie. I even read it to my own mother a little bit and my wife, and they just were like, "Wow, that's some intense writing." Yeah. So that's how that happened. I don't want to be long-winded with it. So I wrote that one first. It got great reviews. It did really well. It's on Amazon and on my site. And then a couple of years after that, I realized I was ready to start the biography. And that's where we are now with Thunderfoot.
And you got quite the story too, man. I mean, we're talking 50 years of some serious rock and roll, living, right? And now this is only volume 1. There's going to be 3 volumes. Is that right?
Right.
Wow. So what is covered in this first volume here? Is it the inaugural Oshawa years and sort of coming up there, or?
Yes, it's right from the very beginning, my first high school band, which was called Sphinx. That was very, very near and dear to me. And it's so funny when you're 16 years old, starting out in the business and touring for the first time. You look back on it and you think, well, this is it. This is the band. This is the only band I'm ever going to be in. Yeah. I'm going to make it to the top with this band.
Sure.
Like that's how you go into it. I mean, we were opening up for Max Webster and stuff back in those days. And I thought I was making it with that band, so that's really the start of the book and a really interesting ride with that Sphinx band right up until I was 20 years old when I met Russ Graham of the KiLLeR DWaRfS, and that's what started the real deal started up. And so, it's been a crazy ride for me. Everybody's unique in their own way in this business, and I certainly have a different story, and that's sort of why the title is, Chronicles of a Rock and Roll Pirate. They call me the pirate these days, especially. I'm taking on that somehow.
Sure. Now, are you still out there touring the book, though? Are you still out there doing some traveling?
Well, yes, I am. And what I do is, even when I'm on a vacation sort of thing, I'll do a pop-up book signing, and they're just a blast. That's how I ended up hooking up with Johnny in Vegas and all that.
Yeah.
I just do these pop-up book things. And really, all they are is just meet and greets with my friends. and I usually do it in a sports bar because I'm a big sports fan of hockey and football.
Sure.
And I end up having 20, 30, some of my best friends and fans get to come out and hang for 2 hours, have a few beers, watch some hockey, and it's turned out to be a big success when I do this. The one in Tampa was huge. And it's just really, for me, it's great. I like more the meet and greet part of it than so much the book sales. I mean, that's always nice, but I love actually talking to fans when they don't really get to talk to me at a show very often. So this is a prime opportunity to just sit down and talk with everybody. And I really enjoy it. And it's not for everybody. I mean, not every entertainer is into that side of it, but I enjoy it personally. I really do.
Yeah, I'm sure it'd be really cool too. And what is the current status of KiLLeR DWaRfS?
Well, that's crazy. That's an awesome question because it just baffles me how all the promotion that we do, and we've been around for 40 years. We just came off our 40th anniversary tour, which will be ongoing this year in the spring when we pick it up touring again. And
good news.
It's just amazing that there's still people that come up to me and say, "Are you guys still around? Are you still touring?" And we've been back touring solid for 10 years now. Like 10 years solid. Yeah. Monsters of Rock cruise every year to Miami. We tour America 20, 30 dates a year. But it's a big world. It's a complicated world as hell, right? These days, as we know. It's insane out there. And there's so many rock acts in the world these days that, unless you're a fan of the KiLLeR DWaRfS and religiously follow the band, you might not know we're around touring. So, that's why I constantly promote as much as I can. When I'm promoting my book, I'm also promoting the KiLLeR DWaRfS. We've recorded some new music, which is people have been waiting forever for actually some new music. We have a couple of new tracks we've recorded. We might do a full album. That's still up in the air whether we wanted to just go with a couple of tracks to download first. But the great news is we actually got our asses in the studio and recorded a couple of songs. It took us a decade to do that, but we have achieved it, and I'm happy with the songs. I think they're KiLLeR DWaRfS songs, and I think the fans that bought our early albums in the 80s will hear this and instantly go, "Wow, that's the DWaRfS," and that's really what you want,
Now, are you guys still with Dave Ellison's label?
No, we're not.
You're not? Okay, so who are you guys with right now? Is it sort of like an indie thing, or?
Yeah, we're not with a label at the moment. we don't really need to be with a label.
No, nobody really needs to be with one these days, do they? You know,
not really when you think about it. I mean, it depends what you want to do. I mean, to download, we're with a bunch of download groups, so we're fine there. But I'm not saying we might not sign to something for distribution worldwide. We haven't talked about that yet because we were with Dave. And Dave's label is no more, and it's actually not even because of his unfortunate masturbating skills or whatever happened there. Right? It's not because of that. Actually, I think he had some business management fallout with his label and decided to just move on. That's what happened with that, and we were fine with it because we had already let them distribute a couple of our albums that were already out. Start at One record and. We were going to record a new record with them, so now we're not. So that's all. So now we're open to some other suggestions possibly, or we will just go with the downloads for now to just see how it's received. You know.
So when is the new music set to drop, Darrell?
Well, it's being mixed, so I would probably be safe to say maybe a summer release.
Oh, nice, beautiful, perfect.
Yeah. That's what That's what I'm shooting for. How's that? I need to get
that'd be great.
Page. Yeah.
Now, a question for the fans, of course, of the band. Do you still have any communication with classic members like Mike Hall and Ron Mayer at all?
It's funny you mentioned Ron. He sent me a message 2 days ago, which is pretty bizarre on Messenger on Facebook, and he sent me a old picture I've never seen of me in front of a dog park sign that said "No dogs allowed." And it was my head above the sign. So every once in a while, Ronbo pops in and says hi to me. Mike Hall, no, I haven't talked to him in quite a while. Yeah, we're not currently talking all the time. It's not because we're not friends or anything. It's just, you just go your separate ways, right?
Yeah.
He hasn't been in the band in so long, like 20, 25 years or more.
Yeah.
Over 30 years.
Yeah, it's like that classic lineup of KiLLeR DWaRfS, and I mean Dwarves still. I mean, I think your guitar player has been with you since '91. Your current one, right?
Yes, Jerry. Yeah.
So I mean that's a good run, but I mean I'm going back to thinking because I'm a big Dirty Weapons fan. I mean I'm sure Johnny told you this, but that drum intro to Dirty Weapons is one of my favorite drum intros in rock history, dude. And I'm not lying in any way, shape, or form with that.
That is so interesting. No, I love hearing that because it's when I was creating that intro with Andy Johns in California, it was such a special magic track and album. That is our largest selling record and probably one of my favorite albums as well. Mm-hmm. I went for a simple intro, like I could have done boombastic stuff and triplet fills and bottom type stuff, and I just busted into that groove as a trial, as a tryout, not even a set thing. Going, this is the intro, and it just was born. The track was born, and it's kind of no different than Living After Midnight, how that intro kind of starts, but it has the flam starts that kind of set it up. Some have compared it to some of Cinderella's kind of sounding intros.
Oh, right.
Yeah. I wasn't thinking of any of that though. I was just busting into something that would get the groove started, which is a straight 2/4 groove anyway. Sometimes the simplest stuff is the best stuff. It sounds so cliche, but it's so goddamn true.
It really is, man.
Right?
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about your time in Laidlaw and doing shows with Motley. What was that experience like?
One of the best of my career.
Really?
I love the Laidlaw guys dearly, and I just reconnected with them recently. It's funny you brought that up. I was just in Long Beach, and I reconnected with Tommy and Buzzy, the lead singer and the guitar player, the slide guitar player.
Yeah.
And we had a great time together and just kind of rekindled our friendship. And I just kind of lucked into that whole thing. I mean, well, I won't say lucked into it. I made it happen. I mean, this will be in the next chapter of my book. I had a rough go in the grunge era there after the Dwarfs went on the hiatus.
Sure.
I had a rough go like a lot of musicians. I was out of a band and out of work.
Yeah.
All through that grunge era. And I had to make up my mind what I wanted to do. And I'm a career musician, full-time musician. I always have been.
Yep.
Not that I don't want to work in a factory. No, I don't. But I'm a career musician. I've made my living writing songs, playing drums, singing, whatever. And Toronto was in a weird state back then, if you remember. The music scene was all but gone. The metal scene was definitely shut down. Hip hop was starting to be big. House music, those kind of hip hop dance things. DJs were becoming stars. Yeah. And I just decided I would move to California because I had so much luck there recording with the KiLLeR DWaRfS, and I figured I could maybe get some studio work. Maybe I could ride it out, see what was going to happen. Yeah. So I got a green card and I moved to California for 7 years. And Craig DeFalco, who is Mike Anthony's bass tech, actually, he was for years and years. He was the leader of this band Laidlaw that was called Moonshine in the beginning. And he ended up working for Nikki Sixx as Nikki's bass tech on the Generation Swine tour. Right. And I know we don't have a lot of time, so you'll have to read it in the book. But I'll just end it off by saying that Craig got in Nikki's face, got him the demos of Moonshine, landed a record deal with Nikki Sixx's label. Nikki produced the record with Brian Dobbs that did the Black album from Metallica. Yep. And we went in the studio, into Tiffany's studio in Burbank, California, of all things, quite the history, recorded this wicked record called First Big Picnic, and I just love the record to this day. And we went on tour with ZZ Top and Leonard Skinner, 2 different Motley Crue tours of Scorpions, and I had the greatest run with that band, and I was just back. I felt like I was back on top again from being in one of the lowest, most depressed states of my life. So It just goes to show you, if you just work hard and believe in yourself, you can rise above anything.
I want to ask you about, we have a few minutes left. I want to ask you about memories of touring with Pantera. Tell me about that.
Well, that was another highlight KiLLeR DWaRfS tour for us.
Sure.
Like the Maiden tours and things like that, the big ones that we were so lucky to be a part of. But that was a special tour with Skid Row and Pantera because the air was changing, the music scene was changing, and that was just before grunge. You know what I mean? Just before it really hit, and you could sense that things were changing, whether it was going to be for bad or good for us. But Pantera was a cutting edge band that wow, they were something to see for the very first time, and we were seeing them for the first time. I was, and that was, I think, the Cowboys from Hell tour or whatever. It was one of their early tours, and they were just breaking. They were opening for us in some markets.
That's wild, man.
And but you could just sense that they were going to blow up and be the cutting edge new sound of hard metal, like hard rock. Yeah. And they were a great band and great guys, and it's just I knew them all well, and I don't want to get into the death of Dimebag because it's just too insane how that happened. Yeah. And now the Bolt brothers are not with us. And now they are doing this reunion. Not reunion, I guess it's a tribute. I like to see this Pantera thing with Zakk Wylde that's out right now.
And Charlie, I mean, it's certainly the big hot ticket this year.
To this day, it's just one of the best times, one of the best decades ever, that 80s into the 90s there. It was amazing. Good times, man.
Well, thanks so much again for the time today, man. And I look forward to talking to you again.
Okay, see you, brother.
Take care. All the best.
Bye.
There he is. That's Darrell Dwarf. And again, the name of the book is Thunderfoot Chronicles of a Rock and Roll Pirate, Volume 1. 2 more volumes still to come. And Darrell, just an absolutely great guy. And just great talking with him. Can't wait to see Darrell again. And catch a KiLLeR DWaRfS show, man. I've not seen a KiLLeR DWaRfS show. It's been years, dude. I mean, it has been many, many years. But great live act. It's Scott Penfold here with you, though, on the Loaded Radio podcast. A lot of people tuning into the Grammys, of course, which took place over the weekend. I'm not one of those guys that really looks forward to, or, makes it a big event to tune into the Grammys. I know a lot of friends of mine, or a lot of like families, it's a big family night, put the popcorn on because it's the Grammys tonight and we're going to see who wins all the awards. They like to literally sit there and watch all these millionaires, pretty much smoke each other off, if you know what I mean, and thank each other for the awards. Not to say that these people aren't talented. I mean, they're obviously phenomenal at what they do. Great vocalists, great songwriters, and yes, some recognition is definitely deserved. I'll say that. I'm not going to be completely get off my lawn with this thing, but I mean, it's just really not the type of thing that I like to spend a Sunday night doing. When there's Xbox to be played or metal to listen to, you know what I mean? But I do want to mention this, though. Ozzy Osbourne winning the Best Rock Album Grammy for Patient Number 9 as well. Ozzy walking away with the Best Metal Performance for Degradation Rules, which is the new song he recorded with his Black Sabbath bandmate, guitarist Tony Iommi, which appears on the new Ozzy album, Patient Number 9. And it's a great song, too. I mean, it's got that Black Sabbath-ish riff. And, I mean, when it comes to Tony Iommi, the lead is just so signature, man. I mean, we're talking about Tony Iommi here, right? A great song. You know what? A great album as well. I think that the latest Ozzy album, it's got so much talent packed in there. I mean, we're talking about Eric Clapton, Jeff Beck, Tony Iommi, like I mentioned. Robert Trujillo from Metallica, he's in there playing bass. Robert previously spent some time playing with Ozzy, and Robert is just one of the greatest bass players out there. Chad Smith from Red Hot Chili Peppers there doing some drums as well. Duff McKagan in there as well doing some bass on some tracks. Produced by Andrew Watt. It's a strong album front to back. You've got some of the best on this record. So it's really no big surprise that it walked away with the Best Rock Album for the year. Now, Ozzy was honored with a Grammy for the Best Rock Album category in the pre-telecast ceremony, which took place at the 65th Annual Grammy Awards, which took place Sunday, February the 5th at the Crypto.com Arena, formerly the Staples Center in LA. I love how it was put in the pre-telecast ceremony. That's where rock is now. Rock has been, shoved to the back of the class, if you would. Really just sort of even just swept aside and put to the pre-telecast ceremony of the Grammy Awards, which are now essentially dominated by R&B and hip-hop and pop. Which, again, nothing against those genres. They have their place and they're great. They have a lot of fans. A lot of people like listening to that music. But the fact that rock has just sort of been, put in the telecast ceremony, just stick it up there where you kind of have to go online to watch it. Some of the other nominees for the rock album category were the Black Keys, Dropout Boogie, Elvis Costello and the Imposters with The Boy Named If, Idols with Crawler, Machine Gun Kelly with Mainstream Sellout. I won't even go there with that right now. Ozzy Osbourne's Patient Number 9, and of course Spoon with Lucifer on the Sofa. Ozzy, I think the strongest there, coming out on top, I think was a wise choice, and I do think that the Grammy committee made a wise decision for that. But looking to the Best Metal Performance Grammy for Degradation Rules, that one beating out Call Me Little Sunshine by Ghost, We'll Be Back by Megadeth, Killer Be Killed by Muse, and Turnstile's Blackout. Some strong bands in there, man, and some strong tunes. Ghost, of course, Megadeth, We'll Be Back, very strong. I mean, everybody who was in there, all the nominees for that category, I think they're fantastic. They're killer. It's great stuff. It's stuff that I will crank the fuck out of, and I think it's awesome, really. But Ozzy, I think as well, definitely deserving to come out on top in that category. Once again, in the pre-telecast ceremony of the 65th Grammy Awards, Best Metal Performance. Yeah, you think rock is the redheaded stepchild? Metal is the redheaded stepchild that requires Ritalin. Yeah, that's just how we're essentially treated when it comes to the Grammy. So again, I mean, much like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the institution that is the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I don't really put too much stake in the Grammys. I don't put too much stake in the Grammy Awards. And again, this isn't just something against what it is. I believe in recognizing great talent, sure, and I believe in having an institution that recognizes incredible music. And that's at the point where the rock and roll as a whole, as an entire genre, a genre which is very alive and well, if you don't mind me saying, man. I mean, some of the biggest tours are rock and metal tours. Seriously. Some of the biggest money-making tours out there are bands from rock and metal bands. Look at Metallica. Look at Slipknot. I mean, it's ridiculous. How rock is just shunned, and these institutions so much look down their noses. Even the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame looks down their nose at rock and metal. I mean, it took Judas Priest how long to get inducted? And they didn't even get really inducted normally like you would. They had to make, they put them in the special category, I mean, who we got metal-wise in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Well, we got Metallica, we got Black Sabbath, now we've got Judas Priest, Guns N' Roses are in there. I mean, it really depends what you want to call metal. Sure, Van Halen's in there, but there's no Pantera in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Iron Maiden, they're among the nominees for the 2023 Hall of Fame. The fact that Madonna is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but Iron Maiden isn't at this point, don't you find that a little odd? Don't you find that kind of humorous? I mean, we're talking about Iron Maiden, dude. One of the biggest selling bands of all time, one of the most sought after live concert performances of all time, and still not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. What does that tell you about the way people look at metal? That stigma, which really came to fruition in the 80s, about looking down on metal, how it's the bad music, the music of the dregs of society. You know what I mean? That still seems to maintain. Where's Tipper Gore through all this? You know what I'm saying? It's like that kind of mentality is just so frustrating to me as a metal listener. I mean, I find it insulting. I find it blatantly insulting the way that hard rock and the way that heavy metal is treated by these big institutions who, no, instead, let's bring hip hop into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Again, nothing against hip hop. Nothing at all. It's great music. I enjoy hip hop. But putting it in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame alongside Madonna, I mean, it just don't call it the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Call it the Music Hall of Fame. Do it something like that. I mean, come on. We're talking about rock and roll here, a genre that the institution which bears its name seems to be shunning. You know what I mean? It's unbelievable to me. But even looking at the list of the complete 2023 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame nominees, okay? We're looking at Willie Nelson. Okay, granted, Willie's awesome. Country, yes, but, it's Willie Nelson. Okay, that I can bend with. Kate Bush. Yeah. Is she rock and roll? Well, yeah, I guess. I'd say she was really more of, I'm not going to say pop artist because Kate Bush wasn't exactly what you would call a 10 or top 20 artist. I guess when she really came to in the 80s. But okay, sure. Missy Elliott, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Okay. George Michael. Rock. Calling George Michael rock? If you tune into any rock station in North America, you're probably not going to hear George Michael. Sheryl Crow is there. Okay, cool. A Tribe Called Quest is among the nominees for the 2023 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Iron Maiden, there we go. Yes, okay. Understandably, it's Iron Maiden. Yeah, they should have been in there years ago. I mean, we're talking seriously years ago. And then as well, Joy Division and / New Order, which, I mean, I can understand they're pretty much the same band, kind of, pretty much. But yeah, if you want to even call them rock and roll, yeah, I guess you could. Sure. Cyndi Lauper. Yeah, maybe, I guess, again, you tune into any rock station across the country. What are the odds of hearing Cyndi Lauper? Rage Against the Machine, though, they're up, which is great. Okay, awesome. Soundgarden as well. They should have been in there so long ago. The Spinners, okay. The White Stripes, okay. And then Warren Zevon, Werewolves of London. But Warren, of course, had many more great songs besides that one, but I mean, that's beside the point. The point is that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the institution which bears the name rock and roll, seems to have forgotten what rock and roll really is. And again, I really need to make this clear, especially in today's modern age, because people get so offended so easily and they think I'm attacking, and I'm really not, because it's really not about these other artists and how they don't deserve to be in some sort of institute. They do. They're phenomenal at what they do. They are so good at what they do. Just don't call it the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Okay? I mean, after all, the Grammys and the institution that is the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame don't really seem to like rock and roll. They seem to want the world to sort of just forget about rock and roll. I mean, they know it's there and they'll cater to it. It's almost like it's kind of a chore for them to acknowledge that rock and roll exists. They have to see the backlash that came up. I mean, how long did it take Kiss to get inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Kiss, one of the biggest bands in the world, hands down, whether you like Kiss or not, you have to admit, dude, when it comes to Kiss going on tour, like look at the tour they're on right now. It's a never-ending farewell tour. It's massive, but it's just, there's no recognition for rock and roll, it seems, you know? And again, is it just my opinion? No, it isn't. It's an opinion shared by a lot of people, man, you know? So anyway, that's just, again, my view on things. If you enjoyed watching the Grammys, good. I'm glad you had a great Sunday night and you enjoyed watching the telecast that was the Grammys from Los Angeles. Hey, you know what? Beyonce walking away with a world record amount of Grammys now. Good for her. You know, well deserved. She's an incredible artist. You know, but yeah, just to seeing rock treated the way it was, because remember back in the 80s, it was like rock and metal dominated the Grammys. It was all you saw at the Grammys was rock and metal bands, man. And it's amazing how things can change and how time just this change, right? It's a completely different animal. But the thing is, it's a fluid sort of thing. It's not going to stay this way. Music, much like many other things, is constantly flowing and moving and developing and growing, if you would. So who knows? Maybe there could be another swing around. It could be coming again where, you know, rock and metal is on top of the pyramid, if you would, when it comes to rock and roll. You know, but right now we seem to be sitting down at the base of the mighty triangle that is consumed music. Is it a shame? Sure it is. But then again, there is a certain coolness to it at the same time. Yes, it pisses me off, but at the same time, rock and roll was never meant to be your mom and dad's music. It was never meant to be, you know, that thing that everybody loved and just everybody listened to. No, that's not rock and roll. Rock and roll, and especially metal, has always been for those who needed it. It's meant to be for those individuals who get those shivers up their spine when they hear that particular riff, that music that touches those individuals in such a way that cannot be explained. If I have to explain to you why I love heavy metal, you'll never understand it. We are a breed of our own, and we are a very loyal breed. So sure, stick us in the back of the class, ignore us, try and convince yourself and the rest of the class that we don't exist. But the point is, we're still here. We're still at the back of the class, and we're not going anywhere. And you can keep ignoring the elephant in the room all you want, but the point is that elephant's there, and it's big, and it's loud, and it's perfectly happy being the elephant that it is. Don't forget to check out loadedradio.com on a daily basis for all your hard rock and metal news. It's updated constantly, okay? Yeah, man, we are your news site for all things going on in hard rock and heavy metal. Also, don't forget, you can get past episodes of the podcast there, too, and via the Loaded Radio app, which is completely free, by the way, man. Yeah, who can't go wrong with a free app? You can get that as well at loadedradio.com or wherever you get your apps, okay? Oh, and speaking of the podcast, you don't have to directly go to loadedradio.com or the app to get your podcast. You can get them wherever you get your podcasts. Yeah, man, we got them up at Deezer, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, everything, man. It's all there for you. Just a click away to listen to past episodes and some of the great interviews we've done on this very podcast. On that note, I thank you on behalf of myself and everybody else at Loaded Radio and loadedradio.com. We will talk to you again next week, where I'll be talking to Satchel from Steel Panther. They've got the new album On the Prowl, which is dropping February 24th. And yeah, man, brand new Steel Panther. That's going to be awesome because, hey, a Steel Panther album is always something great, man. It's always a good time, a fun time, which it's always fun talking to Satchel as well. Going to be, I think, my third time talking with Satch. So, yeah. Tune into that one next week right here on an all-new edition of the Loaded Radio podcast. So horns up, and we'll talk to you then.
Loaded Radio.